I'm murdered. Yeah, yeah. Coming up on Mental Health Marty, we are going to have a community conversation about dealing with trauma in the aftermath of all the shooting that's going on in our nation. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. It's Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist, coming to you always live and in living color in Southern California. And we wanted to come on today with, of course, my co-host, who's just my sister from another mister, Miss Portia Scott. And we wanted to come in after we did our show on this past Tuesday. We wanted to address and have a community conversation about everything that is going on in our nation and how do we process that. But before we bring Portia on, I just want to remind you the intent of the Mental Health Marty show. The intent of this show is to be a psychoeducational type of program so that we can definitely talk about our thoughts and our feelings and what we're going through in a safe platform so that we're not judged, but that we have a place that we can talk about and process, especially during these shootings, what's going on. Now, this is intended not to be a replacement for your therapist, for your pastor, for seeing your medical doctor, your psychologist, or your psychiatrist. However, this is to be a supplement to your treatment plan. However, if you are experiencing any type of psychiatric or medical emergency, please go to your nearest urgent care where you can get the proper help that you need. If not, continue to stay tuned with us because we have a great conversation that's going to be happening today. Now, how do you engage with us? I am so glad that you asked that question. How do you engage? We want you to totally engage because we are exclusively on YouTube on Mental Health Marty. Now, if you have not subscribed already, do us a big favor. Please subscribe and share this with other people because we want to definitely be that platform that you can go to support you along your mental health and wellness journey. Our motto, and that I always say, we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. Why? Because when you are heard, you can live your best life. Without any further ado, I want to bring on with me none other than Miss Portia Scott, coming from Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Portia.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Marty?
You know, we are making it over here on the heels of this Memorial Day weekend. And right. Thank you so much for having this amazing idea and thought to, I love where your heart is always, how can we help our community with everything that's going on? And I just cannot thank you enough. And if I can say it this way, I am grateful because you always, when I see you, we always have a moment of gratitude. I'm grateful for you and the care and love that you have for not just we as African Americans, but for mankind itself. And we need to show a lot more be more human in humanity. So
Mm.
thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Marty, thank you so much for agreeing. For you guys
Yeah.
that don't know, we put this show together in about 2 days. So it's like you as
Right.
well as our guests that are coming up. So I'm grateful for this moment. It's a
Yes.
lot going on. And even this week, I was
Yes.
reeling. And to be quite honest, I was feeling it. And I was just thinking, if I'm
Yes.
feeling it, there's got to be other people that are feeling it. So let's create this moment where we can breathe, where we can talk, where we can
Hmm.
pause, where we can have community. It helped when I called
Yes.
you and was able to say, I'm reeling. It was
Yeah.
it was
Right.
important for me to call my community. And so
Right.
sometimes our community is right here. It's the people
Right there.
that see us back, that we're interacting with on different platforms and in different
Yes.
ways. That's community.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for this moment, and not to say that it's a great moment, but I think it is
Right.
important that we show up in these moments and that we're present. So I'm excited about having this conversation. I just love
So
people, so I'm excited that there's somebody to have this conversation with us.
and that's the truth. A lot of people are just like, why should I see a therapist? I ain't crazy. It's not
Mm,
about being crazy. It's about
yes,
processing our emotions. We are humans, and we were created to have emotions. We were created to feel.
absolutely.
We were created to mourn. We were created to laugh. We were created for excitement and all of that. But
Yeah.
oftentimes we don't know how to process those
Hmm.
situations in life that we just don't understand. I don't understand mass killings. I don't understand the heart or the anger or whatever that is. Paula, Tim, everybody,
Hello,
hello.
darling.
I don't understand that. And I'm like you. I need someone that I can talk to process this. Portia, I'm hurting. Portia, I have a kindergartner, and this was the last week of school. And you're right. I hugged her a little bit more, even though she is oblivious to what is going on in the
Mhm.
world.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, oh, Dad, stop. She was just happy that it was the last day. But you're a mother, and what was that
I
like for
am.
you? Yes, well,
Yeah,
of three
yeah. So
amazing children.
I'm a mother of three, but two of them are still in school, but I
Right.
still worried about my oldest son, just because
Yes.
you could be randomly in a grocery store perusing
Right.
and somebody can come in. But I will say that my kids got out on Wednesday. Tuesday, that shooting happened in Uvalde. And to be honest, I dropped them off wanting to be so excited about the end of the year, but I had knots in my stomach when I went to go pick up my
Yes.
daughter. It was like safety. Like I was so excited to
Yes.
pick her up. And then I picked my son up later, and it was just this relief, like this wave of relief
Hmm.
that I should not even have to deal with to send my children to
Yes.
school. When we think about
Yes.
this, I mean, May 14th, they're just in a grocery store, grandmothers, sisters, brothers, and then someone comes in full of hate and they just take their lives. We're on the
Right.
heels of the second anniversary of George Floyd's
George
murder
Floyd.
that so
And
many
we're
of us have
still
watched.
processing that. Yes.
Exactly. And then you have this. And that is so hard. Innocent children. I mean, all people are innocent, but like to have the mind to go in here. I was looking up some statistics, and I want to say
Hmm.
this, and I know we're going to bring on our
Please.
guest. May 1st, May 2nd, May 4th, May 16th, and May 22nd were the only days in America that we did not have a mass shooting. And when we think
Wait, wait,
about
wait,
mass
wait, 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 wait,
shooting,
wait.
mass,
Hold on, hold on, hold it. Can you repeat those dates? I,
yes,
I'm still
yeah,
trying to
May
process. You
1st,
uh-huh.
May 1st, May 2nd, May 4th, May 16th, and May 22nd were the only days in May, in the United States that did not have a mass shooting. And when we think about mass shooting, that definition really means that there have been four or more victims injured or killed, excluding the subject perpetrator at one location. I mean, one person dying is too many. But now a mass shooting is four or more people that were either killed or injured. And so we have only had 5 days, 5 days as of today, where there was no mass shooting. And you can go to gunviolencearchives.org. And I mean, it was 10 pages of they show every mass shooting, the location, and everything. And so when you look at that, we know that there have at least been over 200 mass shootings since January 1st, 2022. And that is
Yeah.
not okay.
And the majority they're saying of especially what you're doing with all this has operated in Texas.
Hmm.
From
Hmm.
some of these ones that we're doing, especially with the school shootings and some of these
The
other things.
schools,
And
yes,
yes, and we can no longer turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to what is going on. We can no longer stand on political divides. Can I say this
absolutely.
too? We can no longer stand on
Longer stay
false
on
spiritual, I'm not going, that's not
so
spiritual, religious divides.
religion. That's right. That's
Yes.
right. This is, I mean, this is across the nation. It's not just black churches. It's
No.
mosque. It's Jewish
Yes.
temples. Like it is
Yes.
everywhere. And so it is. I mean, it is so alarming that we cannot figure this out. Columbine happened in 1999. I
Right.
graduated in 1997, and we're getting ready to have our 25th class reunion. And in 23 years, we have not been able to figure this out. I still get
Right.
emails from the parents of Sandy Hook. They
Yes.
are still fighting for gun
Yes.
reform. And when you look at it, so many of the things that we want, universal background checks,
Hmm.
making sure it just, for me, I was in the military. And when we
Right.
go into the military, before you
Right.
go to the range, you have to know how to clean your weapon. You have to know
Mm.
how to assemble your weapon. You take
Yes.
you have to know how to take it completely apart, put it together, clean it, and it still has to work before you can even shoot
Go to the
anything.
range.
There are
Right.
policies and procedures in place when we go to the range, when we come off the range. Like, it is a lot. And so you mean to tell me that people that are trained to use semi-automatic, automatic weapons in
Wow.
war, that
Talk to us.
we have more regulations and things we have to go through than just some 18-year-old or 20-year-old or even a 60-year-old that is hate filled to get
Exactly.
a gun. I just don't
Right.
understand it. And so that's where the frustration is that those things are happening.
Yeah, and before we keep saying we're going to invite our guest in, we are the
We
last
gotta
part.
bring our guests on.
We got to bring a guest in. We know that the NRA convention is being held in Houston this weekend.
This week.
What was
Mhm.
alarming to me, not that the NRA was being held in Houston, but they had a no gun policy at the NRA convention that no one was allowed. Wait a minute. So you don't even believe and trust your own system that you're putting in place? Well, if anyone should
Exactly.
carry, you carry at the convention that is saying that I, I had to scratch my head about
Yes.
that. And there,
Oh,
there
Marty,
wait a
I didn't know that. We have got to have this conversation. We got to bring our guests on because we
okay,
need to talk about
yes,
this.
okay. I want to introduce so our first guest that we're bringing on, and we're going to bring them both in, is Dr. Danielle here, who is an educator in higher education, who has worked with many, many, many students along the whole spectrum of education, and he is our expert coming in to talk to us about children, the school system, what they might be feeling, and then even as a Black man, what we feel when it comes to guns, police, all of those things, and processing our emotions. So, Dr. Danielle Hill, and then Portia, you have?
I'm so excited. I am bringing on Lynn Johnson. So I met Lynn working on a project together. Raj, I see you on here. Raj was on the project as well. And when I met Lynn, I loved her heart. There is something
Wow.
about kindness and about caring about
Yes.
people, and she cares
Yes.
about people. And the work
That's
that she
good.
does in and out, she's an activist. She does work around social justice and racial
Right.
equity. I mean, day in and day out. And so
Wow.
she is the CEO and founder of Hella
Come
Social
on.
Impact. She is,
Yes.
at the intersection of theater arts and entrepreneurship and social justice. And she just does all around
Yes.
she's just amazing. And so she's really going to come in, and we're going to create this space for our community to breathe, to have
Love
a
that.
moment, to just sit in this moment. But she's also going to have this conversation with us because a lot of her work, this touches a lot of her work, and so she's really going to speak from that angle.
Sounds great. Let's bring them on. Danielle.
Hey
Hello, hello,
everyone, good
hello.
evening, good
Yes, Lynn,
afternoon.
good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody.
Likewise.
Good to
Well,
see
thank you all for
you.
joining us in this conversation. And I know that before we jump in, Portia, you're going to have Lynn go through an exercise with us because I need to really be grounded these days because my anxiety. I'm a therapist, but I have to be grounded as well. John Henry Scott III, thank you for joining us on behalf of Marcel Consulting and Mental Health Services because we is professional over here. But go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'll let Lynn, I've been in some sessions with Lynn, and just the work she does really around creating space. And I thought it would be important because this topic is heavy. And so I wanted her to create this space for our community so that we can sit in this moment, that we can have a moment to breathe and pause. And so, Lynn,
Wonderful.
I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Portia. And I just want to say that I feel the exact same way about you in terms of
Hmm.
your heart. And so I just want to put that out there and thank you for having me. I am going to start with a creative offering, um, a something that I wrote in honor of May 25th this past week, the 2 year anniversary of the day that Mr. George Floyd was taken from us violently. And I'm going to start just with opening up our kind of hearts and minds with this. How do you write a poem without the words?
Hmm.
Speechless. The moment after moment after moment caught on tape, posted to social media, discussed and debated and hashtagged over and over and over again. We say the things, cliche after cliche, we cry and rant and declare, but somehow we miss the point. Right now, I need a poem, and the words don't seem right. They don't fit how I'm feeling. The words available to me in my feed that spread like a virus can't quite capture the oh and the ow and the of the moment
Hmm.
after moment after moment after. I will keep looking. I know my poem is around here somewhere. I can feel it in me. I can feel it when I look at you. The poem hovers over us when we hear the names, all those names over and over and over. The poem
Hmm.
is in the names, in the lives, in their legacies and loved ones left behind, leaving us here with more than just hashtags, leaving us here with our pain and our purpose, leaving us here together, searching for our home.
Mm. Beautiful. 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 Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much,
Thank
Lynn.
you.
So,
Thank
with
you.
that, I just invite folks to just, I'm closing my eyes. And if that
Hmm.
feels comfortable to you to close your eyes, please do so. Or kind of Look away from the screen for a second, look out your window. And just, I, I just invite you to take your hands to your heart and hold it close. Right now, it's
Mm.
time that we hold each other and ourselves real close. And as you kind of naturally inhale and exhale, you can feel it filling up that space between your heart and your hands. And we're staying connected to each other through our breath. And we remember that it's okay to grieve. It's
Mm.
okay not to be okay. It's okay
Mm.
not to keep going with business as usual. Because real close in our hearts right now, we're going to hold those names and those stories of those real people who've been taken from us in completely avoidable ways. And try to feel the connection between your heart and mine and everybody else who's on this call, no matter where we are in the world. And try to remember that those kids weren't someone else's kids, they are our kids. Mr. Floyd wasn't someone else's father, he was our father, he's our brother.
Mm.
And we're all connected to each other through our hearts. And as you feel that connection, we're just going to take 3 big, deep breaths together across time and space. We're going to inhale through our nose and hold it in for just a moment. Hold on to that goodness and exhale it out. And 2 more times just like that. Inhale it in. Hold on to the love and exhale it out. And the final time, feel that breath all the way down in the earth. Inhale it in. Hold it in your heart. Let it fill you up with gratitude. And exhale it out. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back to us here and now.
Amazing. Thank you. And just that
Yes.
grounding alone helps us to release a lot of that we have in just built up in us to open us up to not just more air to
Yeah.
breathe, but also open us up to even embrace ourselves and say, you know what, I'm not okay, and that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
Because too often, especially we try to have all the answers, and sometimes the answer is just sitting in that pain for a little bit and just
Yeah.
embrace it. I love the human connection. Portia, you were going to say, I feel you right there. Yes, I
I
feel the
was just
human
going to
connection.
say, like, even as she was saying the poem, every time she does her poems, like it just makes my eyes water. And I heard this poem on a webinar that she did. Um, but as she was writing that poem, as she was reading that, I felt like we owe the world a
Mm,
poem to leave. Like we
mm,
owe it to leave this world a better place than we found it.
yes,
That we need to
yes,
leave our own poems, right? And so if that's you, whatever it is that you do, whether you're a educator or a mental health professional or just a
right,
mom, and not just a mom, but a mom or a dad, or there's no, because you may feel like there's no big impact that you can make because you're not celebrity or you're not this, but every time we touch somebody, like, it should be our poem. our offering to the world to leave it better than we found it. So right now in this moment, these four squares that you see, this is part of our poem. This
That's
is
right.
part of
That's
our
good.
poem that we're given to the world. So Lynn, thank you so much for that. Danielle, and we can all kind of have this conversation, but Danielle,
Mhm.
you're an educator, so I just want to first say thank you for your work and for your service. And just as you know, you kind of hear the news about these shootings, but also being a Black man in education, we kind of go to our educators, we go to our administrators. Um, how are you navigating this time, even with your staff, and what are you guys doing to navigate this moment? Because there's educators on the call that are like,
Right.
I just don't know what to do.
Thank you. First, I'm gonna just jump right in. I am one of those ones. I just don't know. Um,
Mhm.
it, as an educator, you never thought going into this field or in this profession that this would be something you would have to worry about. I think the most that I thought coming in as an educator had to worry about is how do I help those get the aha moment. Educational theorist Wolfgang Kroller, he talks about allowing people to have that aha moment. When you get that aha moment, you are more inclined to appreciate and absorb that which you just learned. How do you learn that gun
Yes.
violence, trauma is a commonplace? When I heard what happened on Tuesday, I actually was stuck.
Right.
Stuck was just like not knowing what to do. It wasn't, here we go again. It was not, oh my God, did this happen? It was just like, I have a 7-year-old, and I think about. Actually, I called Marty. He was one of the first ones I thought about. It was his daughter's graduation, promotion, and I know how much he puts into what she's doing. I wonder how is he feeling right now. I think what took me by surprise is when they actually showed the pictures hours. I think it was by 6:30 where I saw a family sitting on the curb waiting to hear if their loved one was going to come out. I began to put myself in the place. What does that feel like? The unknowing, the not knowing. So as an educator, I think we just don't know. I'll speak for myself. I just don't know. I remember back in 2015 or 16, I believe, I was working at a place, and we began to have these trainings, active shooting trainings, where they would come in and
Right.
tell us, well, we need to do this or we need to do that. But what happens when that doesn't even work?
Mm.
Mhm.
It's just like we just don't know. I wrote down, Lynn, as I was listening to your poem, there were 5 words that came to my mind that I had to write down. And these were my 5 words: black, hurt, chance, love, and next.
Mm.
I need
Mm.
people to understand that this is not about a black and white thing. This is just
Right.
about pure hate for whatever
Mhm.
reason. I
Hmm.
mean,
Right.
how do you hate a 10-year-old? What did a 10-year-old do to you to make you want to just go and just take their lives? I think that our society these are all my beliefs, not an educator, but these are my beliefs. I don't believe that our society has a regard for life as we did back in the early 70s and 80s, and even our ancestors who were trying to get to freedom, wanted to live a free life. There's no regard for it because this would not happen. You have lawmakers that are fighting day and night. I actually intentionally went into a particular news station and I listened to some of the commentary, and I said, well, where is the human in the humanity? My first thought went to, what if one of your children died? What if you're on Capitol Hill, you lawmakers who battling back and forth about what we should or we should not do? What if you get a phone call and said, hey, you need to come to the school because your loved one X, Y, and Z? Does your mindset change? When I thought about
Right.
hurt for me has gone to a whole nother level, because when you take the lives of children, it's just unacceptable in my mindset. Um, do they get another chance? Is there a second chance? I try to tell my students, and I have students of all spectrums, that life is not like the video games. There's not 2 more men left that you can kind of go and play over. When it's gone, it's gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something as simple, and maybe it is, and maybe it's not in a poem, Lynn. But where's the love?
Mm.
Sometimes, there's a part of a song that says love will keep us together, but guess what? Love can't even get us to be on the same accord. And then the last one I
Yeah.
thought about next. What do you want us to do next? What do you say is next? Portia, you pulled up some data, but there's some specific stuff I got. There have been, since 2022, there have been 77 incidents about mass shootings. You guys, we're just only in May. This is
Right.
only May.
Yeah.
77. There have been 14 outside of the 19 that happened, deaths that have happened, and there have been 45 injuries. What does that look like to go to 14 or 24 or 30 funerals back to back if you're in a position to do that? It's like, what do we do next? So, as an educator, I believe that I don't think it should be in the hands of the lawmakers, because it has shown that it doesn't work.
Right. Right.
So when
I
they're
believe.
blatantly disregarding what the public want, 89% of the country says we need to have tougher
Gun
decision when
laws.
it comes to gun laws and all that. And when they
Right.
blatantly ignore that, that goes back to how the foundation of our country was set up: the haves versus the
I
have-nots.
have
And so
nots. Absolutely.
I get
Mhm.
that when you said that 89% of us, but is that really what we want? Do we send our children to prisons now? Where there's bars on the windows and the doors? What happened to the freedom of just having education? You want to talk about trauma? Let's talk about those students who are in the
Yeah.
room next door, when they got to go back to that
Yeah.
same classroom next year.
Well, that's
What's
what
the
you
trauma
heard
that's
even say, that they're struggling with going back to school. They're
Hmm.
struggling because the fear that anyone can walk on. I know at my
Absolutely.
daughter's school this past summer they put up all these rails, iron rails. So now it's not an open campus any longer, but it is a closed campus, which we know we have to do for a reason. And has that become
Right.
now the norm in order to protect our children? I'd much rather do that than they just walk on and shoot them up like they have been,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Go ahead, Portia.
And it
And it's,
shouldn't be. I was going to say, Lynn. Oh, I was going to pass it to Lynn. Lynn, I'll let you speak, but I know that Lynn has a daughter too, right? And so,
yeah,
Hmm.
I do.
um,
Yeah, my daughter's 13 and she got out of school last week. So I was like, oh, but that one thing I wanted to jump in and say, Danielle, you were talking about how this is not a black and white issue, and it shouldn't be a black and white issue, but it is. Like there's also, we have to remember that the work that I do is I am
Hmm.
a facilitator, and I help leaders show up for racial justice. And one thing that we have to help people understand is that these laws are in place because of the legacy of the lie of white supremacy in our nation, right? And so,
Hmm.
and that is trying, and that is, they're working so hard to maintain that. And now I hope that what you're saying, Danielle, is true. I'm hoping that people are understanding, oh wait, like, we want everyone to be able to see the extremely racist system that that these laws come from. This idea, this kind of Second Amendment right, this right to like protect my stuff and my people at all costs, is very much about protecting whiteness, and now it's like everyone's being affected. Everyone has to understand that this is impacting all of us, no matter what your color is, no matter where
Definitely.
you're from. Yes,
that's good.
yes,
Yes. The effect of it is out, getting out of control. But when we now take the lives and don't value the lives, one, of our children, two, of
exactly.
elderly, and three, of
Exactly.
our black men and black, we can't leave out Breonna Taylor in this as well. Our black and
Right.
brown lives in this. There is a huge disparity here that we can no longer ignore. Go ahead, Portia.
Yeah. I was going to say it's almost like the NRA, right? Like it's supposed to be for everyone, but it's really not. It's really for white gun owners. And we saw that in Philando Castile, right? Is that you have this NRA card carrying member that is getting shot down by police. So I think that, Lynn, you were absolutely correct, because we could be doing all of this stuff, doing everything that we say, we can be complying, but none of that matters. And I think the big thing is about when we talk about semi-automatic weapons and things like that, like I believe I don't want anyone coming in 3477 acting a fool. You know what I mean? And so we navigate that appropriately. But what I can say is that if you are concerned that a whole army is coming, that you need a semi-automatic weapon or rifle in your home, that is a you problem. Like something's going on in your life that you feel like a whole army is coming, that you feel like the mob is coming to get you. That's a problem. And what that is perpetrated by is the news. I am afraid that usually, right, mostly is like black and brown folks are going to come into my suburban or whatever neighborhood I live into, and they're going to come in droves and try to take my stuff. And so, and it's perpetrated by the narrative of the media. And so it
But
is true that these laws are here. Go ahead, Marty.
no, I'm saying, but the narrative we cannot continue because what I feel in my field is that whenever someone who doesn't look like us gets into trouble, we can say, oh, they were having a mental health crisis. Well, when you can write a 400 plus
Yes.
page manifesto, that is no longer a crisis. That is very intentional. And so
Makes
the
sense.
field is already questioned because it's not a hard fact science, but it's behavioral and emotional driven. So it discounts the hard work that those of us in the profession are trying to do. And it even discounts healing that we as a people try to do because now we are not valued and your feelings don't matter. Well, our feelings do matter, and this is not acceptable, and this is not, and this is acceptable, but we have to look at that across the spectrum properly. And I just don't think that when you're doing that type of mass killing, then you can just, this is just Marty, automatically say, I'm having a mental health crisis. Well, then there should have been other signs of that, and other professionals, such as the NRA and so on, should have caught that then. And we hold, once we start holding these corporations and government and conventions responsible, the shoe will change. But can we talk
Yeah.
about some of the trauma that people, go ahead, Lynn, you were going to say, that we
I
are
just
experiencing?
I wish I had the statistics that Portia had, but there's something about the I read something recently about the mental health crisis in our country,
Hmm.
um, and how if you are someone who is suffering from depression, severe depression,
Yes,
anxiety, like it's proven that you should not have a gun near you,
right,
right? Like
Hmm.
right.
like you can your chances of surviving a for example a suicide attempt are better if you don't have access to a gun, right? So
And
if
that's what
you
we
are
write
have
in the profession in our treatment plans. Go ahead, Lynn, because you're absolutely
exactly,
right.
exactly. So it's the same. So why can't like this idea that the Republicans tout that it's like, well, this is just a mental health issue. Like you can't talk about them separately. You just can't.
Right.
It's like look at the science. It's like and the statistics are high in white men, right? White men's suicide rates are up
Hmm.
with handguns. So because they have access to guns and they're depressed and they use them, and so I don't know. It goes hand in hand, and it's frustrating
I
when
totally
it
agree
comes.
what you're saying. I definitely agree what you're saying because if we're looking at, because if we're writing them in treatment plans, and someone who has suicide ideation or severe depression, what I'm going to do, what are your triggers? So what are we going to do? We do it in child with probation children and those are, we take the knives, we take all the knives, we take sharp objects, we take scissors, we take guns, we lock them up, and they cannot have
Yeah,
access to it. So that's our in home background check that we do. just on basic things. We take butter knives away. I've gone as far as we put plastic knives in people's homes and plastic utensils because they can't be trusted because of the state of mind they're in. So all that. But can we talk about what we feel? What maybe we're feeling as a community, and Danielle, what you're seeing on campuses when it comes to processing this, the depression, the PTSD, and some of these acute stress disorder and all these other things. But what do you see on even on these campuses in general that they're experiencing?
So I think, Marty, I think you said it in the beginning. What I'm finding is not necessarily trauma from shootings, mass shootings, but I'm thinking what I have seen over the last probably 5 years is just trauma about life.
Mm.
It's become so difficult. When I listen to some of the challenges that some of our scholars have on these college campuses, it's really about the effects of life. Not always necessarily the major things that's happening mainstream, but what's happening in everyday life. How we cope, I think that's just what we do. We just kind of cope, and we try to find other avenues to actually reel against those challenges that we're having. Sometimes we can address them. What I have found in my career is that the schoolhouse begins to be the end all be all. You bring everything to the schoolhouse and you sit it there at the house. So I have been a pastor. I have been a drug counselor. I have been a police officer. I have been a judge. I have played so many roles and so many titles in the last 27 years. It becomes commonplace when I have to go, when I start to see signs, when I start looking at, I was just telling a friend of mine the other day, rhetorical question, is it a sad state of affairs that you would prefer a student to come to school high so they can function, as opposed to when they're not high, they just cause havoc? That's the world we live in right now. The drug market, whether they're prescription or otherwise. I got to see you smoke 3 blunts before you walk into the school building, because I know that day you won't cause havoc like everybody else would do that is not. I'm just amazed. Even some days of how we kind of making it through, because at the front door of the schoolhouse is where all the problem starts. And unfortunately, us as educators, we don't have the answers. I can't recall taking one class about mental stability when I was doing my master's degree or my bachelor's degree, or even looking in the actual system. So we're not equipped. We do what is instinct as parents, as spiritual people. We just take what we know, but even when we take in what we know, it's still not enough.
That's so good.
When you don't know what you don't know, that makes it more difficult, especially when you find out the next day that a student that you had a relationship with, whether they were just a student you saw passing in the hallway or they were one of your students, that they're no longer with us.
Yeah.
This is why I
Dr.
purposely wore this shirt. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No. I want you to say why you wear that shirt, because I think that's important.
I intentionally wore this shirt today because not that I wanted to make it one statement or another, but I just wanted a person to know that as a human being that has a pulse, that I matter. So if they saw me, whether you were not in the right state of mind or not, I would, for my students, I would stand up to defend them, and I wanted them to know that I mattered. Not because it sounds like a cliche of a hashtag, but guess what? I'm bigger than a hashtag. I, as Danielle Hill, matter. I was taught a long time ago that God, He don't make no junk. And when He made me, He made the only one of me. And so when I'm no longer here, there is a void in the earth. Now that's Bible. And I'm not trying to go to church, but there's a void. Don't take away my life. Don't take away my life because of your instability or because you don't like the color of my skin, because I still matter.
That's right.
Dr. Hill, you said something so important, and I want to address this with Lynn, because you talked about, like, we would rather see our children, our scholars, come to school high or taking whatever they need to take to function, rather than really get to the root of those problems and
Hmm.
see what is going on. What are they medicating for? Lynn does a lot of work in organizations, and that's where a lot of the big money is, right? Those are the movers and the shakers. Those are the people that are really affecting these lobbies and affecting policy because they have the money to pay and to have things go their way. And so, Lynn, I'm going to ask you, really, from the work that you do, like, as you're going into these organizations, like, how is it to try to really help them to see their bias, help them to see that, some of the things that they are doing are actually hurting real people,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because of their bias, because of the systemic injustices.
Yeah. I'm saying all the things that you all are saying right now. Like, we try to get to the heart of reminding people that it is human
Yes.
beings who are working alongside of each other. Just the other day, I was
Hmm.
having a conversation with a woman, a black woman who um, was like, one of the only black women, or probably the only woman of color, like, in her whole kind of leadership team.
Right, right, right.
And
Mhm.
and I talked to her Wednesday, and she said, I just came from a leadership team meeting, and I do not understand how we're just going on, how we just went on. We went on about our business. We went on about the agenda. There was no space to stop and talk about what was happening. There was no space. They didn't make space for anybody. And you know that she wasn't the only person in there that had feelings about the
Absolutely.
news, right? And but
Right.
there's this sense of like we need to create spaces where people can show up and be people at work, and and and
Yes.
we start, and we always tell people, the organizational leaders, you start by centering, paying the most attention to those folks from the most historically marginalized groups: black folks, indigenous folks, non-black folks of
Mm.
color. But that when you come with that place of humanity, when you create an environment where folks can feel things, it's going to benefit
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And so this kind of thing, like this, can you imagine? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I've worked for myself for years, but the idea of going into a meeting the day after, a horrific mass shooting of children, and to not make space, to not say, hey, how's everybody doing? Just a simple, you know like, we
How
always,
are
like,
you
those
doing?
three breaths. Like, we start most of our meetings with three just simple breath: breathe, check in, how's folks doing, how you feeling. Do and we encourage people to go all the way to, do you need some time off? Do you need to take a day? Do you need to take
Mm.
a week? Do you need to be with your kids? Do you need to, all that kind of stuff, and how it's really simple policies.
And it's just a
Um,
like you
Right.
said, Lynn, it is basics with that. This past week, right afterwards, most of us are doing so much remotely, but we're all on teams together. And Lynn, I just sent a simple um, message out to them. The Association for Counseling, American Counseling Association, had sent out a little message and put some resources. So I copied it and put it in the chat. And half of the therapists just were commenting, we're struggling today. And so half the day we just processed our own
yes,
emotions. So and it was
Yeah.
beautiful because then everyone just starts supporting each other and saying, hey, hang in there. I'm right there with you. And yes, I agree. I hugged my children extra tight today, or I checked up on my godchildren to make sure they were doing all right. And so it created this sense of ease. And even
Hmm.
though none of us had the answers to anything, but it was just good to know that I wasn't by myself in this process.
Yes.
yes, yes.
And it's
That's
Hey,
great
the
to
I have
know that
a
I
thing,
have.
right? Go
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
ahead,
have a
Lynn.
But
question for you, Marty. Actually, I have a question
yes.
for you, because if if someone in my family, my personal family,
Hmm.
died,
Hmm.
it would. There are systems in place, like people would expect me to take some
Right.
time off, right? To
Right.
go to the funeral, to do the mourning, to like take some time to
Hmm.
get my affairs in order. And
Yes.
so my question is, when we experience collectively this much
Yes.
Mm,
loss, grief,
Yes.
even though it's not someone in my own family, doesn't my brain or body like process it like someone near
that's
me
it. Wow.
died?
Most
Like,
definitely.
yeah. So
Yeah,
so
because we can have that what called kind I was saying we have the kind of like that whole secondary PTSD or because even with processing everything with George Floyd and millions of us saw that and we constantly relive that children feeling that connection because that could have been one of their friends and so yes you're absolutely
Mm,
right in
mm,
the
so
community
good.
we can feel that and a lot of times PTSD is just not for when you're in the military. It's when
Yes.
you feel and have that a situation or an event in life affects you so much that it now starts to impair your normal everyday living
Yes.
then that is the setup. Now, we know that PTSD, to be officially PTSD, it needs to be 30 days. But you can still
Hmm.
have the acute stress disorder, for the next, that only happens within the first week. And then for those
Hmm.
other 3 weeks, we're in that acute stage because we can't really let it go. And many children are in that state, and many people at work. I saw that. I said,
Yeah.
that could have been my grandmother in Buffalo. Go ahead, Portia.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I told you that day I dropped my kids off at school and I kind of just stayed in the bed,
Yes.
and
Right?
I tried to stay away from some of the news. But some, I read something and I lost it. And I was just like, this is
Right.
crazy. Like, this is so crazy. I was reeling like this was somebody I knew, but I felt
Right.
that of a parent. And of course, I don't feel
Hmm.
the extreme grief that they're feeling, but I felt something. And Lynn,
A
I'm glad you asked
heaviness.
that question because I wonder, Marty, you just talked about having that, that stressor that we have for a
Hmm.
week, right? And so we're all feeling
Right.
this for a week. But what does happen when Tuesday comes back around? It's almost like I don't want us to still feel that grief, but I want us to feel something that we're still acting on it because it almost feels like we'll feel it for a week and then the next news cycle, and so I don't want us to stay in that grief, but you understand what and I don't know if I'm
Totally.
asking a question, but just wondering like how do we not necessarily stay in that grief, but care enough that we keep on going, that we keep on bringing this up, having this conversation. Even if we're not per se, like I wouldn't say I'm not an activist. I wouldn't say like that because I
Right.
have not done the work, like especially the work that Lynn has done and things like that. But how can I put my weight behind maybe something she's doing or something someone's doing so that I don't forget? I just don't want to forget, Marty. I don't
Yes.
I don't want us to forget that this
Yes.
is a serious issue because it wasn't my children's school, but who knows whose school it could be? Who knows whose church or mosque or temple or grocery store or mall that it could be?
Yes.
And so I don't want us to live in the grief, but I do want us to stay in a place where this isn't just another news cycle. Those were lives, those were
Yes.
children.
great
I
question.
love that. Go ahead, Danielle. You were going to say.
So, Portia, what you said, it struck a good nerve with me. Like, I feel like my heart is like kind of pitter pattering because I want to be a little transparent for me. I grew up in a time where I wasn't, I guess my culture or my generation or my group of people, we didn't have the ability to feel. We didn't have always necessarily the opportunity to, kind of get in your feelings and process that. I believe and I feel like I have a lot of tendencies of our ancestors that, when a problem comes up, I kind of look at it, address it, deal with it, and then I keep moving. So as an educator, I feel like sometimes that I don't have the ability to not be strong because if I'm not strong, then what do the students see from me? And not even just from me, but even my colleagues. But now I'm beginning to question, where do the strong go? So when you talked about, what do we do? I'll share a couple of things that I've decided to do. Lynn, when you made mention about, when people die, there's certain things that they look you to do. I believe that I've become that person in my family. I've had so many intimate, close people to die in my family. I don't always get an opportunity to grieve. It's always go into, work mode and do things. And so, Portia, you're talking about, well, what do we do? Sometimes I don't feel like, and this is just as a black man in America, that I don't have the fundamental opportunity to do that. But what I have learned how to do is that if I don't break away, I'm going to break away. So I've gotten a therapist, and we talk through, maybe not necessarily him and I, we haven't met since Tuesday, but we talk about certain compartments in my life that helps me to unfold some things. I look for, Portia, tools that I can put in my toolbox, because sometimes I feel like I still don't have the advantage to be able to, to crawl up in the bed and just lay there all day. So I find what are some things out there being said so that I can go and help the next person. But I will tell you, I honestly, I'm still struggling. And it's beyond, the shooting that happened today. I'm even struggling back to when things happen in my own neighborhood. Just because, and I don't know how old people are, but you remember back in the day, if you stepped on my shoe, we're going to fight. I've had friends of mine, and it's starting to come back.
We didn't shoot people up.
That's right.
No. You didn't grow up where I grew up at, because if you stepped on my shoe and I really didn't like you, I'm coming back and I'm taking your family out. There was a whole family in Baltimore that was wiped out. I'm talking about
the shootout city. I wasn't doing that. No, baby, no. Oakland wasn't even that bad. Come on now.
Don't talk about Baltimore. But that's the truth. And I know that I have a lot of counterpartners, not just as an educator, counterpartners that feel that same way. And so I don't know, Lynn, Portia, what does next Tuesday look like? Will we relish on what happened? Do we move forward? Or does it become commonplace where, here's another shooting? What is going to be said? What is going to be done? Where are the people that's going to
fall into commonplace? We cannot.
No. I agree that we should not. I agree that we should not. But how many times do we have to have a Sandy Hook? When Columbine happened, I thought that was going to be one isolated incident, that this would never happen. Who shoots up a schoolhouse? Who goes to a college campus and write people out just because? That is not something that is supposed.
Yeah.
Well,
and, Dr. Hill, to be honest, and I think the reason why I wanted to have this show is because I don't have the answers. But I think we give ourselves grace, because if Tuesday comes and I'm still feeling that same way, I may not have the strength to keep going, because or to do anything in that moment. And everybody is going to grieve. Everybody is going to navigate this very differently. And I think it's okay to say that it is okay to navigate it the way that you need to navigate it, to keep yourself sane, to keep yourself healthy. That is really important, is that we all grieve differently and navigate through this differently. And it is true, especially as Black men and women, right? We have this armor. And so maybe in this moment, we take our capes off and we say, you know what? I don't want to let this just be commonplace. But I do need this time to breathe. I do need this time to process, to take my cape off, that I can't be trauma responsive right now because I don't even know how I feel and I can't process my feelings. But when I have feelings, now I can start looking at how can I partner with maybe an organization that's doing something? How can I Google and find out what the gun laws are in my state? How can I Google and find out what's going on with the Board of Education in my community, in my county? And so I think it's baby steps according to what you can do, but I do think we keep it to the forefront, that we can't allow it to be another cycle. We can't let gun violence be just another cycle. We can't let trauma in the Black and brown communities just be another news cycle, but to take that time that you need to process that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lynn.
I think that you have to, we have to feel those feelings. We have to go through it in order for it, in order for us not to forget. Right. And one of my, I have this quote I want to bring in, that one of my dear chosen family members brought to me yesterday. And it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Wow.
It is no
Wow.
measure.
Can you say that again?
Yes, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So this idea, if we're not doing okay, we shouldn't be doing okay. This society was set up for us not to be doing okay, right? So the fact that we do all that we do to cope, and our ancestors have done all that we do to cope, and we do yeah, we have to do that to kind of keep going and to keep surviving, but to be able to understand that we're gonna fall apart, and we're gonna need to breathe, and we're gonna need to stop, and we're gonna need to do all these things, and then we're gonna kind of come back, and we're gonna be strong again, and we're gonna go away again. All that is just, it's us trying to adjust to a society that's not set up for our wellness. It's just not.
Yeah. And before we go, y'all, can you believe we've been on here an hour already and just and we barely even scratched the surface. But I want to remind us of those things that we can look for. Possibly you're seeing some things in your children and even in us. I wish I could say it was just children, even in us. And I just don't want us to be ignorant to the signs of trauma and not being able to process everything. First and foremost, what we all have said on here and on this panel today, if you're not doing well, it's okay. It's okay that some days you might want to use your PTO day. Or even it's okay that you might want to tell your children, you know what, you don't have to go to school today. We're going to have a stay at home fun day, love on each other type of day. With that, I'm going to caution all of our parents and even within ourselves, look for some behavioral changes that happens within each of us. Watch for that. If you're sad, I'm like you, Portia. There's some days it's like, I just don't have the strength to get out of bed. 1 or 2 days is okay. Well, now when we're starting to get into a week of that becomes a serious problem with that. It's okay to say, I don't even know how to process this. And parents, you don't have to have all the answers. Talk to your children and say, how do you feel? How do you feel about your school? Are you safe? Safety is one of the basic needs. Food, shelter, and safety. One of the basic needs in the Maslow hierarchy of needs. When we're talking about that, that's a basic need. Allow your children to express themselves. Watch how they play with each other. Be careful if they're having these nightmares. They may need to sleep with you a couple nights. It's okay. Some of our younger children may revert back to bedwetting and those type of things. That's okay. Don't beat them. Don't beat them. Don't scold them. Don't embarrass them. Embrace them and see what's going on. During this time of suffering, you all hear me say, it's my desire that we not continue to secretly suffer in the shadow of shame, but we create safe environments that mom, dad, uncle, grandmother, all the children, nieces, nephews, godchildren, the neighborhood children, and the cat and the dog and the goldfish, if that be the case as well, that we all get to express our feelings and how we're doing. Before we leave, real quick, 30 seconds, your final goodbye exit wish for our people, and how do we get a hold of you? We're going to start with Danielle. Dr. Hill. 30 seconds. You're going to preacher mode.
I think for me, no, I'm not going to preacher mode. Portia, you've kind of brought everything full circle for me. I took away something that my mind has been running since you said it, and I'm going to take it. I'll give you a little bit of credit for it. Take the cape off.
That's good. How do we follow you, Danielle?
That's what's going to work for me. And I have a lot of friends that fall in that same category of being strong, but it's okay to take the cape off. If you want to follow me, DanielleHill@gmail.com, on LinkedIn, Danielle Hill, Facebook, Danielle Hill.
Thank you, Danielle. Miss Lynn Johnson, talk to us.
I'll say just keep looking for your poem. Just keep telling
Wow,
your
that's
we
good.
should keep telling for our stories. You can find me at my website is hellasocialimpact.com, or you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at A Black Woman Speaks.
Come on, TikTok. I know that's right. Portia, darling. We know I am Portia Scott. We know that. Yes. Talk to us also about your show that's coming up in July. We're so excited about that. And your final thoughts and words, too.
Yeah, I think my final thoughts are just give yourself grace in these moments and at this time. And when you need to take a break, take that break and give yourself grace, the same grace that oftentimes we give to so many other people. I am excited because we are launching a new show called Hello, Darling,
Hello, darling.
July 10th. We're super excited because we get to tell stories, we get to share stories of humanity. And that's really what this show is doing. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry. We have different segments. We're going to talk about coffee because you guys know we love it. But we really are highlighting those stories that bring us back to humanity, those feel good stories, and highlighting people doing the work. So, again, you can follow me at I am Portia Scott, but you can also follow us at Hello Darling. That's DAARLING TV on IG and YouTube.
Love that. So, John Henry, your husband must be he'll be your first guest with all this coffee because I ain't one to gossip, but he got about 10 coffee makers in the house. That was still the best pour over I've ever had. So I'm coming back to Atlanta so I can have my pour over with John Henry Scott and the children. I'm waiting for my gourmet grilled cheese sandwich from Maddox, and I just want Miracle to come down the steps this time. But anyway, listen, thank you all for joining us in this community conversation in how to process the trauma we've all been through and experienced over this past week from Buffalo, the 2 year anniversary of George Floyd, and here most recently, the tragic killing of those 19 children and 2 teachers. Now, before we go, we never want you to not know that we have some resources for you. If you're experiencing any type of crises whatsoever, we want you to definitely type crises to 741-741. We're on a new platform. I'm not in my regular one. Yes. And with that, if you need help, please feel free to reach out to me at mentalhealthmarty.com. Daryl, you go. That's what I'm talking about. Work it out. Again, type crises to 741-741. Psychology Today. There's also good therapy. Is that right? Yes. Therapyforblackmen.com. Good therapy. And if you're a black man that's in need of free therapy services, check out Therapy for Black Men. And they also have one Therapy for Black Girls as well. And they also offer scholarships because we never want you to not have the necessary tools that you need in this mental health journey. And of course, marcelconsulting.com. In this journey called life, again, we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in the shadow of shame, but we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. And always remember to enjoy your life. We'll see you on this coming Tuesday as we have the doctors on to culminate Women's Health Month. God bless you, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.